Hello React Native developers, I hope you are well. William here, recording from beautiful Zurich, Switzerland. I am quite excited because this video is part of a new series where we are gonna build an app from scratch. I found this beautiful UI kit from Flexin Studio. It has a lot of interesting shapes. The UI elements look great. There are potentially some really interesting gestures and animations. I think that it should be quite fun to build all these UI elements, and the end result should look quite good. So we are gonna build this app from 0 to 1, and in this video we're gonna start with the beginning, creating a new project with Expo, adding ESLint, TypeScript, configuration, maybe load the custom font, and some minimum React navigation. So this is going to be part 1, and in part 2 we're probably going to implement this beautiful slider, which seems quite interesting because of the these odd and yet beautiful shapes. I hope that sounds good. Let's have a look. So I'm gonna create a new project using Expo init. I'm gonna call it React Native Fashion. And we're gonna use TypeScript. This should take a while, I think. All right, so we're gonna start the project and open an emulator as well. So the first thing I would like to do is to make the TS config a little bit stricter. So I think I should have a template here. So same configuration, I just like to make it as strict as possible. And so that should do it. Looks good. And now we can use also the ESLint config. So I have my configuration here packaged, but it's actually a very small configuration because I use React Native community ESLint config. I really recommend it. And I like to use it with ESLint import. I find this plugin to be quite powerful. But of course, you know, you can have any, you can customize it to your own taste. But definitely the React Native community ESLint config I recommend. And one thing I like to do in combination with this plugin, because this configuration is actually having a lot of warnings, and for me, these warnings don't make sense. It should be either an error or not. So I like to run ESLint with max warning 1, but I think actually it should be 0, right? Oh, yeah, I think it should be 0. But so that warnings are errors. And instead of reconfiguring the whole React Native community configuration to replace all warnings with errors, we can simply run it and say I want only errors. Should be 0, I think, actually, the default configuration. Yeah. So let's do that. I'm gonna install my little plugin here. So yarn add ESLint my configuration in dev, and I can create the .eslint rc file. And I can add these 3 scripts here to my package.json to run the compiler and the ESLint check. And so here max warning should be 0. So we have the app running here. Let me just go full screen. Up. And I think what we're gonna do now is to add, we need some navigation, right? So we're gonna add React Native navigation. So up. And yeah, we have these dependencies with Expo. Okay. So now we can have the default navigation container here. So you see the cool thing here is that on save ESLint errors are automatically fixed, which is kind of nice. And so we're gonna have, if we go to the UI kit, so we have onboarding, registration. So we can create a stack. Maybe let's call it authentication. Yes. So we can have authentication navigator. And so we're gonna create a navigation stack. So I probably need to install React Navigation Stack. And so I'm gonna create authentication stack, new. Let me check. React stack navigate, create stack navigator. Okay. So create stack navigator. And here, so we have the navigator, and we're gonna have a screen called onboarding. So component. So let's create, I'm going to create a source folder. And I think I'm going to create a subfolder for the authentication. So to have onboarding, sign up, sign in. Authentication. And I'm going to create a folder called onboarding. So I'm going to create ts.index, export default from onboarding. And so I can have default component here. Just like to debug, I can have like flex 1, background color, cyan. So we're not. It's okay. And now we can import onboarding. So here we need to return. Okay, that looks good. I think one thing we can do is to load the default font, which is SF display. And I think I'm using it here in the animation course. So in assets, I can create a folder called fonts. And I have the font files here. Let me see if I add them locally. SF Pro text bold. So I can copy them. So let me open this folder in Finder and paste the file. So here they are now. And I have also a recipe here, I think, to load the font at startup. So here I use a component called load assets where you can give images and fonts. And it will use the loading component from Expo. So if I go to load assets, and also it does a couple of things. It uses uploading from Expo to load the assets before rendering the component. And so we're showing the splash screen while everything is loading. And we save the in development, the navigation state. So if you're working on a particular screen, when reloading the app, you always end up on this screen. So instead of redoing the whole navigation, you're always on the screen you're navigating on. So I need to install Expo Constants, Expo Asset, Expo Font. So I'm gonna do that. Expo Asset and Expo Font. And I'm gonna copy this component. So I'm gonna create a new folder in source called components. And so it's called load assets. And I'm going to create an index file. So it would be default as load assets. While I'm there, I'm also going to create an index file here in authentication. Default as onboarding. So let's go back here. So we're going to use load assets. We need to give the fonts. So I'm going to also copy from this project. Here are the fonts. So, okay, we have some fonts, which I can pass here as parameter. And it needs some as, okay, let's see. Needs, okay. This one we can remove. So now we've loaded the proper font. Maybe here we're gonna, I mean, we have no header. So I think we can do Can we configure it here? Header mode. What are the possible value? Is none a possible value? Yes. Perfect. So we have some base boilerplate. I think the next step is going to be maybe to create some, actually we've loaded the font, but maybe we're going to create some base style guide for the typography. And we're going to build, I think, this nice slider in the next step. And also here we need to create a nice button. So this seems to be like the regular button, primary button. There is also this variant of a button, which is, I guess you could say maybe like transparent. So yeah, next step, let's build the slider. I hope you guys like this new video format. Let me know what you think. And I am seeing you in the next one.